And he assembled. God's trumpet call presence, encounter the living Messiah. And he assembled. The Torah Portion Vayak'hel begins with Moshe assembling the community of the people of Israel to tell them what Adonai has ordered them to do. And Moshe said to them, "These are the things that which Adonai has ordered you to do." Exodus chapter 35 verse 1. The verb kahal means to assemble, and Vayak'hel means and he assembled. Kahal means assembly, congregation, or community. Torah refers to the community of the tribes of Israel as kahal. The assembly, a common Bible term denoting all Israel. The word kahal is translated as ecclesia in the Greek Septuagint. The word ecclesia is found throughout the Greek version of the Old Testament. The word is used to refer to the assembly of Israel, an assembly of worshippers in the temple. However, when the word appears in the New Testament, the English translators substitute it with the word church. Because of this mistranslation, it appears to most readers that the church first appeared in the New Testament disconnected with the Old Testament and the nation of Israel. The word church never appeared before the book of Matthew. This error has made us believe that church is a new constitution outside of Judaism and the Jewish people. This understanding of the original language implies that the New Testament church must be understood in continuity with the Jewish people, and that Messiah will gather all Israel into his assembly. In gathering of the assembly, when Moshe came down the mountain with the second set of tablets, he assembled the children of Israel to hear the instruction that was given to him by Adonai on the mountain. The second descent of Moshe corresponds to the second coming of the Messiah, and the assembling of the congregation of Israel corresponds to the messianic ingathering of Israel. This ingathering is referred to as kibbutz galuyot in Jewish eschatology. Maimonides says that coming of the Messiah will follow a specific order of events. According to him, Messiah will first establish the kingdom. After that, he will rebuild the temple and gather all exiles to Zion. Ultimately, King Messiah will arise and will restore the kingdom of David to its ancient state, to its reign as it had first. And he will rebuild the temple and gather the exiles of Israel. And in his days, all the Jewish people will return as they were in former times. When Moshe returned from the mountain, first thing he did was to gather the assembly of Israel. After that, he began to build the tabernacle. This is not the order of events suggested by Maimonides. Will the ultimate Redeemer rebuild the temple before the ingathering of exiles as suggested by Maimonides, or all the ingathering of the exiles? According to apostolic teachings, when Yeshua HaMashiach comes, he will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Messiah will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we shall always be with the Lord. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 16 to 17. Believers in Yeshua HaMashiach will meet the Messiah in the air and accompany him to Jerusalem. Ingathering of the assembly. Behold, the Lord comes with many thousands of holy ones. Jude chapter 1 verse 14. Yeshua HaMashiach will take his stand on the mountain of Olives and defeat the enemies of Israel and establish the kingdom. After that, he will build the temple, and ingathering of the exiles will begin as prophesied by the prophets. Nations will take part in the process by providing transportation to bring the Jewish people to Zion from all over the earth. This suggests that ingathering begins prior to the building of the temple. With the rapture of the ecclesia of Messiah corresponding to the words, then Moshe assembled all the congregation. Exodus chapter 35 verse 1. Those who have waited for the Messiah's return will arrive in Jerusalem with him as the first fruits of the ingathering. So may your assembly be gathered from the ends of the earth into your kingdom. After the Messiah has gathered his assembly into his kingdom, he will rebuild the temple. As the construction of the temple is still underway, he will summon the nations to bring the rest of the Jewish people to Zion. Adonai Elohim answers, I am beckoning to the nations, raising my banner for the peoples. They will bring your sons in their arms and carry your daughters on their shoulders. Isaiah chapter 49 verse 22. And they will bring all your kinsmen out of all the nations as an offering to Adonai, on horses and chariots, in wagons, in mules and camels, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, says Adonai. Just as the people of Israel themselves bring their offerings in clean vessels to the house of Adonai. Isaiah chapter 66 verse 20. The Sabbath and the second coming of the Messiah. On 6 days work is to be done, but the seventh day is to be a holy day for you, a Shabbat of complete rest in honor of Adonai. Whoever does any work on it is to be put to death. Exodus chapter 35 verse 2. Sabbath means the seventh day of the week. Sabbath is not linked with Sunday. Sunday is the first day of the week. Yeshua HaMashiach is described as the Lord of the Sabbath in 3 synoptic Gospels. Matthew chapter 12 verse 1 to 8. For the Son of Man is the Lord even of the Sabbath. Mark chapter 2 verse 23 to 28, it says, Therefore the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath. In Luke chapter 6 verse 5, Yeshua told the Pharisees that the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath. Yeshua HaMashiach was born during the 7th month. We believe he was born on the first day of Sukkot and circumcised on the 8th day, Shemini Atzeret. Yeshua was resurrected on the 7th day, the 17th day of the first month. He will return during the 7th month, the 7th year of the Great Tribulation. Also, Yeshua will rule and reign in the 7th millennium. After assembling Israel, Moshe introduced the instructions of the work of the tabernacle by reiterating the prohibition against performing creative acts of work on Sabbath day. The observance of the Shabbat take precedence even over the building of the tabernacle. Moshe emphasized on the obligations to keep Sabbath and that people should not think that building of the sanctuary should override the Sabbath prohibitions. This alludes to the second coming of Messiah and the institution of the kingdom, which is symbolized by the Sabbath day. According to sages, Messianic era is a day that is altogether Sabbath. Rabbis say that 6 days of creation alludes to 6 millennia. Each day of the creation story corresponds to 1,000 years. Creation of man on the 6th day corresponds to the coming of Messiah in 6 millennium, end of 6 millennium. 7th day corresponds to the 7th millennium, the 1,000-year Messianic era. At the end of the 6th millennia, Messiah comes and gathers up his assembly, establish his kingdom, and institute the great millennial Sabbath. He will begin the observance of the Sabbath day. Even Gentiles will worship the Lord from Sabbath to Sabbath, as stated in Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23. Sabbath from creation. Sabbath began at creation. God created heavens and the earth and everything in it in 6 literal days, 6 literal evenings and mornings. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, verse 5, verse 8, 13, verse 19, verse 23 and 31. God saw what he made was good, and he wanted to make another day, the 7th day. And on the 7th day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all his work that he had done in creation. Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 to 3. God did not rest because he was tired. He does not faint or grow weary, Isaiah chapter 40, 28 says. He stopped and meditated on how it was good. He did 3 significant things to make the 7th day special from the other 6. He rested on the 7th day. He blessed the 7th day, and he sanctified and hallowed the day. It was a memorial of his creation work. Humanity was to follow God's example of resting on the 7th day and using it to reflect on what God had done for them. The 7th day weekly cycle ended on the 7th day, and God stopped giving new names to the new days. We have a 7-day weekly cycle. 24 hours is based on the rotation of the earth on its axis, months based on lunar cycle or rotation of the moon around the earth, years based upon the earth's revolution around the sun. Man lost his innocence and was expelled from Eden. When humanity became so depraved, God destroyed everyone in a worldwide flood. Genesis chapter 6 to 8. Only Noah and his family was spared. Noah was righteous. Genesis chapter 6 verse 9 says. Noah and his descendants embraced God's ways and walked with God. In Genesis chapter 12 we encounter Abraham, and God promised to make him into a great nation. Genesis chapter 12 verse 2. And through this nation God intended to bless all the families of the earth. Torah says that Abraham was a man that was faithful to keep his laws. Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Genesis chapter 26 verse 5, which means he also kept the Sabbath. God blessed Abraham with Isaac. One of his sons was Jacob. He had 12 sons. To avoid a famine, God used one of Jacob's sons, Joseph, to bring Jacob and his sons and their families to Egypt. In Egypt, they became a great nation. They lived as foreigners in Egypt, but later was subjected to slavery. And God raised Moshe to deliver them from slavery and bring them to the promised land. During their wilderness, God sought to bring them back to following his original plan for them. And one of them was re-educating them of the Sabbath. God established a regular Sabbath observance among Israelites through the way provided their daily food supply. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 3. Exodus chapter 16 verse 5. God gave 10 commandments at Mount Sinai. Exodus chapter 19. The 4th commandment was dedicated to remember to observe the Sabbath. Sabbath from creation. Israel continued to observe Sabbath after they settled in the promised land. Psalms 92 is sung on Sabbath. In Solomon's temple there were priests and helpers who prepared the showbread in the temple that was changed on every Sabbath. Sabbath was observed in the times of David and Solomon. Sabbath was for the non-Israelites too. Anyone wanted to join them in worshipping the true God, they were invited to keep the Sabbath. Even during Babylonian captivity, God sent prophet Jeremiah and pleaded them to turn to him and observe the Sabbath. At the end of the 7th year, God caused Cyrus to release the Israelites back to Jerusalem. Under the leadership of Zerubbabel and Ezra, they restored the worship of God in Jerusalem. You made known to them your holy Sabbath. Nehemiah chapter 9 verse 13 to 14. New Testament was an era when the Jewish leaders were overcompensating. They became unnecessarily strict about Sabbath observances. They had other regulations on the tiniest details on how to keep the Sabbath. They became overzealous, and under the leadership of the Pharisees, it turned into a burden and a method or elevating works over faith. Yeshua HaMashiach was raised in a Jewish household. He attended, participated in Sabbath services in the synagogue. Luke chapter 4 verse 16. Also he taught in the synagogue. Yeshua encouraged us to do good on the Sabbath. He healed the sick. He delivered demon-possessed individuals. His actions annoyed the Jewish religious leaders. But Yeshua replied, Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? Yeshua showed that any activity meant to save life of both man and animals are not violation of the Sabbath. He clarified that it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Matthew chapter 12 verse 12. Yeshua taught that Sabbath was meant for humanity to enjoy. In Mark chapter 2 verse 24, when the religious leaders were upset with Yeshua and his disciples, he emphasized that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. Mark chapter 2 verse 27. He also declared as having the authority to say that since the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath. Mark chapter 2 verse 28. Yeshua came to the world to fulfill the law. In Matthew chapter 5 verse 17 he said, Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them but to fulfill them. Yeshua had many conflicts with the Jewish leaders over Sabbath observances. Some think through these incidents Yeshua gave permission to break the Sabbath commandments. But Yeshua was concerned with removing many unnecessary requirements placed on the Sabbath by the religious leadership of the time. These requirements made God's holy day a burden instead of a delight. The question was never on which day the Sabbath was or whether or not the Sabbath was to be kept. The question was how the Sabbath was to be kept. Yeshua emphasized that God's laws are unchangeable and indestructible. He said it is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than for one dot of the law to become void. Luke chapter 16 verse 17. Sabbath from creation. The way Yeshua's followers handled our Master's burial shows that they took Sabbath observances seriously. Jews asked that Yeshua's body should not remain on the cross over the Sabbath. After he was confirmed dead, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus asked for his body. They prepared the body for burial and buried him in a nearby tomb. John chapter 19 verse 31 to 42. Luke tells us that day was the preparation day and the Sabbath drew near. Luke chapter 23 verse 54. Luke chapter 23 verse 56 tells us that the woman who followed Yeshua from Galilee saw where he was buried. Then they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. Mary Magdalene and 2 other women, who were devoted followers of Yeshua, waited until the Sabbath was past before going to anoint his body with spices. Mark chapter 16 verse 1. After Yeshua's resurrection, early believers met daily. Acts chapter 2:46, Hebrews chapter 10:25. They also met for Sabbath worship. Acts chapter 17 verse 2 tells us that it was Apostle Paul's custom to go into the synagogue on Sabbath and reason with people from the scriptures. While at Thessalonica, he did this for 3 Sabbath days in a row. While at Corinth, Paul persuaded both Jews and Greeks in the synagogue on Sabbath. Acts chapter 18 verse 4. In Corinth, Paul the apostle persuaded both Jews and Greeks in the synagogue on Sabbath. Acts chapter 18 verse 4. In Corinth, Paul and Barnabas went to the synagogue on Sabbath and spoke of Yeshua being the fulfillment of God's promise of the Messiah. Acts chapter 13 verse 13 to 41. The Gentiles begged that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Acts chapter 13 verse 42. And on the next Sabbath, almost the whole city came together to hear the words of God. Acts chapter 13 verse 44. Sabbath meeting were also time for prayer. Paul the apostle in Hebrews chapter 4 verse 9 states, "There remains therefore a rest for the people of God. For he who has entered his rest has himself also ceased from his works, as God did from his. Let us therefore be diligent to enter that rest, lest anyone fall according to the same example of disobedience." The Sabbath will be celebrated for eternity. For Isaiah chapter 66, verse 22-23 states, "For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make remain before me, says the Lord, so shall your offspring and your name remain. From new moon to new moon and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares the Lord." Sukkah for God. According to Jewish tradition, Moshe came down from Mount Zion on Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement. The festival of Sukkot begins on the 5th day after Yom Kippur. This brings us to the understanding that Moshe gave the instructions for the building of the tabernacle in the days just prior to the festival of Sukkot. The building of the tabernacle corresponds to the construction of a sukkah, a temporary shelter in which a Jewish person lives during the festival of Sukkot. You are to live in Sukkot for 7 days. Every citizen of Israel is to live in a sukkah, so that generation after generation of you will know that I made the people of Israel live in a Sukkot when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am Adonai your God. Leviticus chapter 23 verse 42-43. In the wilderness, people lived in temporary shelters. The temporary shelter was called sukkah. They also constructed tent for the Almighty so that he could camp among them. The tabernacle was like God's sukkah on earth. This could be the explanation as to why King Solomon dedicated the temple during the festival of Sukkot. Immediately after the celebration of Yom Kippur, Jewish people start building a sukkah. Those who are zealous begin building sukkah immediately after Yom Kippur to bring together one mitzvah with another mitzvah. By beginning the mitzvah of building the sukkah, as soon as we have finished the services of Yom Kippur, we fulfill King David's words. They go from strength to strength. Moshe gave the commandment for the building of the tabernacle. Like a zealous person who, having completed Yom Kippur, he eagerly began the next mitzvah by commencing the building of the sukkah. When Messiah comes, he too will begin the construction of the sukkah eagerly. Having completed the day of the trump blast, Rosh Hashanah, and the day of judgment, Yom Kippur, he will eagerly construct the Sukkah. Annual festival cycle culminates and concludes with Sukkah. The Sukkot. The festival of Sukkot stands in relation to the other annual festivals like the Sabbath, thus to the other 6 days of the week. Annual festival cycle is concluded with Sukkot. It symbolizes the Messianic era. It looks forward to that day when Messiah will reign from Jerusalem, and each man will sit under his own vine and fig tree. An era of peace, harmony, and prosperity. Lion will lie down with the lamb. The Torah will go forth from Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. All nations will be summoned to Jerusalem to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. They will go up to the temple in Jerusalem to celebrate Sukkah of God. Isaiah chapter 2 verse 2 and chapter 4 verse 6 states, nations will stream to it, and there will be a Sukkah to give shade from the heat by day and refuge and protection of the storm and the rain. Construction of the temple. Moshe said to the whole community of the people of Israel, here is what Adonai has ordered. Take up a collection for Adonai from among yourselves. Anyone whose heart makes him willing is to bring the offering for Adonai. Gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, fine linen, goat's hair, 10 ram skins, and fine leather, acacia wood, oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil, and for the fragrant incense, onyx stones and stones to be set, for the ritual vest and the breastplate. Then let all the craftsmen among you come and make everything Adonai has ordered. Exodus chapter 35 verse 4 to 10. After Moshe met with Adonai on Mount Sinai, he was radiant with God's glory. Moshe is considered as the first redeemer. After he descended from the mountain, he first assembled the people of Israel and reiterated the commandments of the Sabbath. And he delivered the commandments pertaining to the building of the tabernacle. Yeshua HaMashiach is the second redeemer. He will follow this pattern. First, he will gather his assembly and rebuild the temple as prophesied. Destruction of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem corresponds to the death of the Messiah, and the rebuilding of the Jewish temple corresponds to his resurrection on the third day. As he said, in 3 days I will raise it up. John chapter 2 verse 19. And in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8 it states, with the Lord 1 day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like 1 day. Messiah will rebuild the Jerusalem temple in the third millennium. In the Messianic era, Jerusalem temple will be restored as the house of God in Jerusalem. According to Maimonides, rebuilding of the temple is one of the prerequisites that Messiah must accomplish to validate his identity. He must succeed in building the temple, gather the exiles of Israel. His success in doing so will validate his identity. How will this happen, and who will support the rebuilding of the temple? Construction of the temple. You find that when Moshe ascended on high, the Holy One, blessed be He, showed him all the furnishings of the tabernacle and said, this is what you will make. This is how you will make the menorah, the table, the altar, and so forth, with all the work of the tabernacle. As Moshe prepared to descend, he assumed he was to personally make the tabernacle. But the Holy One, blessed be He, said to him, Moshe, I have made you a king. It is appropriate for a king to do something for himself. He gives orders and others do the thing for him. Likewise, you must not build it yourself. You must command others and let them do the work. When Moshe ordered the construction of the tabernacle, he commissioned 2 craftsmen, Bezalel of the tribe of Judah, and Oholiab of the tribe of Dan. Moshe charged them to carry out the building of the tabernacle. Likewise, King Solomon hired Hiram of the tribe of Dan. He was commissioned to carry out the craftsmanship of the temple. Solomon, son of David, oversaw the building of the temple and initiated a golden age of peace and prosperity. Yeshua HaMashiach, son of David, will commence the rebuilding of the temple and initiate the Messianic era. Then the mountain of the house of the Lord will be established, and all the nations will stream to it, the house of Jacob. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2 to 3.